The worst moments of your life never arrive with warning. They arrive quietly, in bare feet and bad timing. The fire alarm started screaming at exactly 2:13 in the morning. Not the soft chirp of a dying battery. A full emergency alarm that echoed through the luxury spa, like the building itself was panicking. I jerked upright, so fast my neck slammed into the locker behind me. For one confused second, I forgot where I was. Then the cold tile beneath my legs reminded me. The employee changing room. 47th floor. Wolf Grand Hotel. I had fallen asleep during my break again. Great job, Claire. I muttered under my breath, rubbing my eyes. My double shift had already stretched past 14 hours, and my body felt like it belonged to someone twice my age. Outside the locked door, footsteps rushed past the hallway. Voices overlapped. Fast. Urgent. The alarm kept screaming. I grabbed my phone from the bench beside me. No signal. Of course. The thick concrete walls on the private spa level killed reception half the time. I moved toward the door and twisted the handle. Nothing. I frowned and tried again harder this time. Still locked. Hello. I banged once against the wood. Seriously? No answer. Another pulse of alarm lights flashed overhead, turning the room red for half a second before fading back to white. My stomach tightened. The night manager usually checked every room before locking the level down. Usually. I looked around for my uniform, but the laundry cart beside my locker sat empty except for a thin white spa robe folded near the sink. That was it. No shoes. No phone signal. No key card. Just the robe and the screaming alarm. Perfect. My hands shook slightly as I tied the robe tighter around my waist. It covered enough to preserve my dignity, barely. Then I forced the maintenance latch open with a metal hair clip from my purse. It took 3 tries and 1 broken nail before the lock finally clicked. Cold air rushed into the room immediately. The private corridor outside was silent. Too silent. The emergency lights along the walls glowed amber against polished black marble floors, stretching down the hallway like an endless tunnel. My bare feet made almost no sound as I stepped out carefully. Hello. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Nobody answered. Somewhere in the distance, an elevator dinged softly. Then came footsteps. Slow. Controlled. Not running like everyone else downstairs. Walking. I froze instantly. 3 men appeared at the far end of the corridor. 2 of them wore dark suits with earpieces visible against their collars. Security, maybe. But the man between them was something else entirely. Taller than both. Broad shoulders beneath a perfectly tailored black coat. Dark hair brushed neatly away from a face so calm it almost looked carved from stone. Adrian Wolf. Even if you'd never seen his face online, you would have known who he was immediately. Power has a presence. It changes the air around people. Every story I'd ever heard about him crashed into my head at once. Billionaire hotel owner. Political donor. Untouchable businessman. The kind of man reporters smiled about on camera and whispered about afterward. My pulse stumbled. Adrian stopped walking the second he saw me. His eyes lifted from my bare feet to the robe wrapped tightly around my body, then finally to my face. And stayed there. Not hungry. Not mocking. Just intensely focused, like he was trying to solve a problem no one else could see. One of the guards stepped forward immediately. Sir, she shouldn't be here. Adrian didn't answer him. He kept looking at me instead. What's your name? His voice was low. Smooth. Calm enough to silence the alarm in my own chest for half a second. Claire, I whispered. Claire Bennett. The guard beside him narrowed his eyes. How long has she been standing out here? I just came out of the changing room, I said quickly. I got locked inside. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Did you hear anything before you came out here? The question made my stomach drop. Because I had. 15 minutes earlier, before the alarm started, I'd heard muffled voices through the wall behind the lockers. Men arguing quietly. Words like shipment, port, midnight transfer. At the time I'd assumed it was rich guests talking business. Now, staring at Adrian Wolf in an empty corridor at 2 in the morning, I suddenly knew better. I swallowed hard. No, it was a lie. A terrible one. One of the guards noticed immediately. His hand moved toward his jacket. Adrian lifted one finger slightly, and the man stopped. Just like that. Complete silence settled over the hallway again. Adrian stepped closer. Not enough to scare me. Just enough for me to catch the clean scent of cedar and expensive cologne beneath the cold hotel air. Then, without a word, He removed his black coat and placed it gently around my shoulders. Warmth wrapped around me instantly. Heavy, protective, dangerous. Nobody touches her, Adrian said quietly. The elevator behind him dinged open. 3 men stood inside waiting. And for the first time that night, Adrian Wolf looked genuinely angry. The 3 men inside the elevator did not look surprised to see Adrian Wolf standing there. They looked surprised to see me. Their eyes moved over the oversized black coat hanging from my shoulders, then quickly away again like they understood instinctively that looking too long would be a mistake. Nobody spoke for a second. The elevator lights reflected softly off polished steel walls while the emergency alarm continued pulsing somewhere below us. Adrian stepped slightly in front of me without touching me. The movement was subtle, almost casual, but it blocked their entire view of my body. The lower floors are being cleared, one of the men said carefully. There was a problem in the west garage. Adrian's expression never changed. And yet somehow my private spa corridor was left unsecured. The silence afterward felt heavier than the alarm. I stood frozen behind him, clutching the edges of his coat tighter around myself. It smelled expensive, clean, warm from his body heat. The kind of warmth that made you dangerously aware of how cold you had been before. One of the men glanced at me again. Who is she? Adrian answered before I could speak. Someone who should have never been left alone up here. The words were calm, but something underneath them made the other men straighten immediately. Not fear exactly. Respect sharpened by caution. Adrian stepped into the elevator first. I hesitated. One of the guards by the hallway gestured slightly for me to follow. Miss Bennett. Hearing my own name from strangers sent another chill through me. I entered slowly, keeping my eyes on the floor. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft metallic whisper. Nobody pressed a button right away. Then Adrian finally looked at one of the men. Penthouse. The elevator began moving upward, not down toward safety. Up. My stomach tightened immediately. Wait, I said softly. I thought I could just leave. Adrian turned his head toward me fully for the first time since the hallway. Up close inside the elevator, his presence felt even more overwhelming. Not because he was physically intimidating, although he was. It was the control, the stillness. Like nothing around him moved unless he allowed it to. You heard things tonight, he said quietly. Things other people would panic about. I already said I did not hear anything. His eyes held mine for 2 long seconds. He knew I was lying. Somehow that felt worse than if he had called me out directly. Claire, he said carefully. If I believed you were a threat, you would not be standing beside me right now. My throat tightened. The elevator climbed higher. 48, 49, 50. The numbers glowed softly above the door. One of the men beside Adrian shifted uncomfortably. Sir, there is another issue. Adrian did not look away from me. What issue? Security footage from the spa level was wiped approximately 20 minutes ago. That got his attention. His eyes sharpened instantly. By who? We are still checking. The elevator suddenly felt too small, too warm. Someone erased footage right before I got trapped in that changing room. My heartbeat stumbled hard. I did not lock myself in there. I whispered. Adrian looked at me immediately. What? The door, I said, my voice shaking now. It only locks from the outside. Someone trapped me in there. Silence. One of the men cursed quietly under his breath. Adrian stared at me for a long moment, thinking, calculating. Then the elevator stopped. The doors opened directly into a private penthouse suite larger than my entire apartment building floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Revealed Manhattan glittering beneath the rain like shattered gold. Soft jazz played somewhere in the background. Expensive artwork lined the walls. But none of that mattered because the second Adrian stepped out of the elevator, 6 security personnel immediately turned toward him waiting for instructions. Nobody leaves the hotel, Adrian said calmly. Nobody enters the spa level without my approval. The room moved instantly. Phones came out. Orders were relayed. People scattered with silent efficiency. I stood there awkwardly in bare feet and borrowed clothing, while one of the richest men in New York reorganized an entire building around a problem that somehow involved me. Adrian removed his watch slowly and placed it on a marble counter near the windows. Claire. I looked up immediately. Yes. Look at me carefully. I swallowed and did. His expression remained controlled, but there was something colder behind his eyes now. Something dangerous aimed at someone else. Not me. You were never supposed to be on that floor tonight, he said quietly. which means somebody wanted you there. My pulse dropped straight into my stomach. Why? Adrian's gaze shifted briefly toward the rain outside the windows. That, he said softly, is exactly what I intend to find out. People stopped speaking when Adrian Wolf entered a room. I realized that within 5 minutes of standing inside his penthouse, conversations lowered. Phones disappeared. Even the men wearing guns beneath tailored jackets somehow became quieter around him, like the entire world adjusted its volume automatically. I stood near the windows wrapped in his oversized black coat, watching rain slide down 50 stories of glass while my pulse slowly refused to calm down. Somebody wanted me trapped upstairs tonight. The thought repeated itself over and over inside my head like a song I could not shut off. Miss Bennett. I turned quickly at the sound of my name. A woman around my age approached carrying folded clothing in her arms. Unlike everyone else here, she wore no dark suit or earpiece, just a fitted gray dress and practical heels. Mr. Wolf asked me to bring these for you. Her tone was kind, but careful. Everything in this building felt careful now. I accepted the clothes quietly. Soft black leggings, a cream-colored sweater, socks, even sneakers in my exact size somehow. Thank you. Bathroom is through there, she said gently, pointing toward a hallway lined with dim golden lights. My name is Elena if you need anything. Need anything? The phrase almost made me laugh. I needed my tiny apartment in Queens. I needed my normal life back. I needed this entire night to rewind itself 2 hours and let me stay asleep in that changing room forever. Instead, I walked into a marble bathroom larger than my living room and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked exhausted, blonde hair tangled from sleep, mascara smudged beneath anxious blue eyes. Adrian's black coat nearly swallowed my frame whole. Somehow that coat bothered me more than anything else tonight, because when he placed it around my shoulders, every man in that hallway had understood something immediately. He was protecting me, and people like Adrian Wolf probably did not protect anyone without reason. I changed quickly and folded the robe carefully onto the counter. But when I reached for the black coat to return it, my fingers hesitated. It still held warmth. Safety, which was ridiculous. Men like Adrian Wolf were not safe. I stepped back into the penthouse 20 minutes later. The room had changed completely. Lights dimmed lower. Rain hammered harder against the windows now. Half the security personnel were gone, replaced by silence and the soft clink of ice against crystal somewhere near the fireplace. Adrian stood alone near the bar pouring himself a drink. No tie anymore. Dark sleeves rolled once at the forearms. Somehow he looked even more dangerous relaxed than he had surrounded by guards. His eyes lifted immediately the second I entered the room. They moved over me once, checking, assessing. Better, he asked quietly. A little. I held out the coat carefully toward him. Thank you. Adrian looked at the coat, but did not take it. Keep it. I cannot keep your coat. You are shivering. I opened my mouth to argue and realized he was right. My hands trembled slightly despite the warm penthouse air. Adrian noticed too. Of course he did. He noticed everything. He crossed the room slowly and handed me a glass of water instead of alcohol. The gesture should not have mattered. But after years of men overlooking me entirely, being noticed so precisely felt strangely overwhelming. Sit down, Claire. I hesitated before lowering myself carefully onto the edge of a cream-colored couch that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Adrian remained standing near the fireplace, watching the storm outside. Do you know why the spa level exists? He asked suddenly. For rich guests. A faint smile almost touched his mouth. Almost. Officially. I frowned slightly. And unofficially? Adrian swirled the amber liquid in his glass once before answering. It is where powerful people assume nobody is listening. The room felt colder after that. I looked down at my hands. I really did not mean to hear anything. I know. The simple certainty in his voice made me look up immediately. You do? You are a terrible liar, he said calmly. Heat rushed straight into my face. Embarrassing. Completely unfair. Adrian studied me for another quiet second before setting his untouched drink aside. You heard enough to scare you, he continued softly, but not enough to understand what was happening. If you understood, you would be trying to run right now. The terrifying part was that he sounded absolutely correct. Before I could answer, one of the security men entered quickly from the hallway. Sir. Adrian turned instantly. What is it? We found who locked the changing room. My stomach dropped. The guard hesitated briefly before continuing. It was one of the hotel employees. But he disappeared 30 minutes ago. Silence settled heavily across the room. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. First real emotion I had seen from him all night. Dangerous emotion. Find him, Adrian said quietly. The guard nodded once and disappeared again. I looked at Adrian carefully. This is about me? No, he said softly. That is what worries me. I frowned. I do not understand. Adrian's eyes finally met mine again across the firelight. Cold silver. Sharp enough to cut through every lie. Claire, he said carefully, I think somebody wanted access to me. And tonight, you accidentally became the door. There is a specific kind of fear that arrives quietly. Not screaming panic. Not the kind that makes you run. The kind that settles into your chest and whispers that your life has already changed before you are ready to admit it. I felt that fear sitting across from Adrian Wolf while rain battered the windows 50 stories above Manhattan. I am not a door to anything, I said finally, trying to keep my voice steady. Adrian leaned one shoulder against the fireplace beside him, dark eyes fixed on me with that same impossible focus. Tonight says otherwise. I hated how calm he sounded. Like this was not terrifying at all. Like hotel employees disappearing in the middle of the night was somehow part of his normal routine. I should call the police. The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence. Not tense silence. Worse. The kind that made me instantly realize I had said something naive. Adrian lowered his gaze briefly, almost thoughtful. You can, he said quietly. But before you do, ask yourself one question. I crossed my arms tightly. What question? His eyes lifted back to mine. Why would someone risk infiltrating my hotel just to trap a spa employee in a locked room? My stomach tightened again. Because he was right. None of this made sense. I was nobody. 24 years old. Working double shifts to survive Manhattan rent, carrying student loans, and eating microwave noodles 3 nights a week. Nobody built elaborate plans around girls like me. Maybe they made a mistake. Adrian's expression barely shifted. People who target me do not make mistakes. The confidence in his voice should have sounded arrogant. Somehow it did not. It sounded factual. One of the penthouse phones rang sharply across the room. Adrian answered immediately, speaking in low, controlled tones I could barely hear. Italian. Fast. Cold. Whatever the person said on the other end made his expression harden by degrees. Understood, he said finally before hanging up. The room felt heavier afterward. What happened? I asked before thinking better of it. Adrian looked at me for a long second like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. The employee who locked the changing room used fake identification. Fake. He was hired 3 weeks ago under another name. My pulse stumbled. So he planned this. Yes. The word landed softly between us. Somehow that made it worse. I stared down at the city lights below the windows. Tiny yellow headlights moved through rain-soaked streets while thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Normal people were out there living normal lives while I stood inside a billionaire's penthouse discussing fake identities and secret corridors at 3 in the morning. I want to go home. Adrian went still at that. No, the answer came instantly. Calm. Absolute. I looked up sharply. You cannot tell me I cannot leave. Actually, he said quietly, I can. Anger flared hot beneath my fear. Finally something stronger than panic. I am not one of your employees, Mr. Wolf. His eyes narrowed slightly, then stopped speaking to me like one. The room went silent again. I stood abruptly from the couch before I could lose my nerve. I do not care who you are. You do not get to decide where I go. Adrian watched me carefully. No irritation. No raised voice. Somehow that composure frustrated me even more. Claire. No, my heartbeat thundered in my ears now. I did not ask to be dragged into whatever this is. I work 80 hours a week folding towels and cleaning massage rooms. I barely have time to sleep. And now suddenly everyone is acting like I matter because I accidentally heard something upstairs. Adrian stepped closer slowly. Not threatening. Controlled. You matter because someone chose you. Why? My voice cracked slightly on the word. For the first time all night, Adrian hesitated. Tiny. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. I do not know yet. Honest. The honesty caught me off guard more than another lie would have. A soft knock interrupted us before either of us could continue. Elena stepped carefully into the room, holding a tablet in her hands. Sir. Adrian turned immediately. What is it? Security found something on the spa cameras before the footage was erased. She handed him the tablet. Adrian studied the screen silently. His expression changed instantly. Not shock. Recognition. Dangerous recognition. What? I asked quietly. Adrian looked up slowly. The man who trapped you was not working alone. A chill crawled down my spine. Who was with him? Adrian turned the tablet toward me. Grainy black and white footage filled the screen. The spa hallway. The changing room door. A man in hotel maintenance clothing standing beside it. And next to him, someone else. A woman wearing heels and a long dark coat pulled tight around her body. Her face hidden beneath the angle of the security camera. But before the footage cut out, she turned slightly toward the lens just enough for me to see one thing clearly. Blonde hair. The exact same shade as mine. For 3 full seconds, I forgot how to breathe. The woman on the screen moved only slightly before the footage glitched and died completely, but it was enough. Blonde hair. My height. Similar build. From a distance, in dim lighting, she could have passed for me. That is not possible, I whispered. Adrian took the tablet back without looking away from me. Apparently it is. My pulse hammered painfully against my ribs. Somebody had planned this carefully enough to use a woman who resembled me. Not exactly. Not perfectly. But enough to confuse security footage at a glance. Enough to make someone believe Claire Bennett had been somewhere she never was. Why would anyone do that? Adrian placed the tablet face down on the marble counter beside him. Because somebody wanted confusion. His voice remained calm, but the room around him felt colder now. Sharper. Confusion buys time. Time creates mistakes. Elena shifted uneasily near the doorway. Sir, should I call Victor? Adrian nodded once. Now. She disappeared immediately. I wrapped my arms tighter around myself even though I was still wearing his coat over the cream sweater. Nothing about this felt real anymore. A few hours ago, my biggest concern had been whether I could afford groceries before payday. Now I was standing in a penthouse discussing fake identities with a man whose name people whispered like a warning. Claire. Adrian's voice softened slightly, pulling my attention back to him. Did anyone unusual speak to you recently? I frowned. What do you mean unusual? Anyone asking questions about your schedule, your shifts, your access to the spa level? I shook my head automatically, then stopped. My stomach tightened slowly. Actually, Adrian noticed instantly. What? I stared at the floor, replaying the memory carefully. About a week ago, a woman came into the spa near closing time. Describe her. Tall, dark hair, expensive clothes. I swallowed. She asked if the private level was always open overnight. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. What did you tell her? Nothing important. Just that employees needed special access cards after midnight. I felt sick suddenly. I thought she was a guest. Adrian remained silent for a moment too long. What? I asked quietly. That woman was not a guest. Before I could respond, the penthouse elevator opened again. Another man stepped inside. Older than Adrian by maybe 15 years, wearing a charcoal suit and silver-rimmed glasses. Unlike the others, he carried no visible weapon. Yet the second he entered the room, everyone straightened instinctively. Victor, Adrian greeted calmly. The older man nodded once before his sharp gray eyes landed directly on me. Not threatening. Assessing. Intelligent enough to make me instantly uncomfortable. This is Claire Bennett. Adrian moved slightly closer to me before answering. Yes. Another small protective gesture. Tiny. Almost invisible. But Victor noticed it too. I could tell by the flicker in his expression. Interesting, he murmured. I crossed my arms tighter. People keep saying things like that around me tonight. Victor ignored my frustration completely. The employee who disappeared left something behind in his apartment. Adrian's expression hardened immediately. What? Victor pulled a small folded photograph from inside his jacket and handed it over. Adrian unfolded it slowly. The second he saw the image, his entire posture changed. Not dramatically. Worse. Controlled anger. The kind that sinks inward instead of exploding outward. What is it? I asked softly. Adrian looked at the photo. For another long second before finally turning it toward me. My blood went cold instantly. It was me. Standing outside a grocery store in Queens 3 nights earlier wearing sweatpants and carrying takeout containers. The picture had clearly been taken without my knowledge from across the street. Another photo. Me leaving the subway after work. Another. Me entering Wolf Grand Hotel through the employee entrance yesterday morning. Someone had been following me. Watching me. studying my routines long before tonight happened. No, I whispered. My fingers trembled so badly I nearly dropped the photographs. No, no, no. Adrian took the pictures gently from my hands before they could fall. Claire, why would someone do this? My voice cracked completely now, fear finally breaking through every layer of exhaustion and confusion I had been holding together. I do not know these people. Adrian looked at me steadily. That may not matter. Thunder rolled outside the windows hard enough to shake the glass slightly. Somewhere below us, Manhattan kept moving like nothing was wrong. Yellow taxis, crowded bars, people laughing beneath umbrellas. Normal life continuing while mine quietly collapsed inside a penthouse above the city. Victor broke the silence first. Sir, there is one more thing. Adrian looked at him immediately. Say it. Victor hesitated. Just briefly. The woman from the security footage was identified leaving the hotel 40 minutes ago. My pulse jumped again. Did they catch her? Victor's eyes shifted toward me slowly. No, the room went still. Why not? Adrian asked quietly. Victor adjusted his glasses once before answering. Because according to hotel security, he paused carefully. Everyone believed she was Claire Bennett. Being mistaken for someone else is terrifying. Realizing that mistake might get people killed is something else entirely. Nobody spoke after Victor's words settled across the penthouse. The rain outside seemed louder somehow, hammering against the windows in violent waves while my heartbeat climbed higher and higher inside my chest. They thought she was me, I whispered. Adrian's gaze never left Victor. How close? Victor adjusted his glasses slightly. Close enough in low lighting. Blonde hair. Similar height. Similar build. His eyes flicked briefly toward me. The coat helped. My stomach dropped instantly. Adrian's black coat. The woman had been wearing one too. Which meant whoever planned this new Adrian would protect me before it even happened. Knew exactly how tonight would unfold. This was staged, I said quietly. Adrian finally looked at me again. Yes. The calm certainty in his voice scared me more than panic would have. But why? My voice sounded smaller now. Tired. What do they want from you? Adrian studied me silently for a long moment before answering. Access. To what? To me. The room went still again. Victor crossed toward the fireplace, lowering his voice carefully. If someone can move through the hotel disguised as a protected guest connected to you, security protocols become compromised. I frowned. You mean they used me to get close to Adrian? Victor nodded once. Exactly. I stared down at the city below the windows, trying to process everything at once. Someone had followed me for days, learned my schedule, found a woman who resembled me, trapped me upstairs deliberately, then used the confusion to move someone else through the building disguised as me. My knees suddenly felt weak. Adrian noticed immediately. Sit down. I am fine. Claire. Something in his voice made me obey before I realized I was doing it. I lowered myself slowly onto the couch while Adrian crossed toward the bar again. This time when he returned, he handed me tea instead of water. Chamomile. Warm steam curled softly into the cold air between us. Drink, he said quietly. I stared at the cup in surprise. How did you know I hate coffee after midnight? Adrian paused briefly. You order tea from the employee cafe every night at 11:20. My breath caught. You know that. I know everything inside my hotel. The answer should have sounded arrogant. Somehow it only sounded true. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup carefully. That is either comforting or deeply unsettling. A faint shadow of amusement touched Adrian's expression for half a second. Gone almost. Immediately, Victor's phone buzzed sharply across the room. He answered in low tones before his face tightened slightly. Sir. Adrian looked up. What now? The woman from the footage used an underground parking exit. Victor hesitated, but security recovered something she left behind. My pulse tightened instantly. Victor handed over a small silver object sealed inside a clear evidence bag. Adrian stared at it for 1 second before turning toward me slowly. Do you recognize this? I looked closer. A silver subway token necklace. Cheap. Scratched. Worn smooth around the edges. My stomach dropped so fast it physically hurt. That is impossible. Adrian's eyes sharpened immediately. Claire. My fingers trembled around the teacup. I used to own that necklace. Silence. Victor straightened slightly. Used to. I nodded slowly, unable to stop staring at the necklace. My older sister gave it to me when I moved to New York. My throat tightened painfully. I lost it 3 years ago after she disappeared. The room changed instantly. Adrian's entire focus locked onto me with frightening intensity. Your sister disappeared? I nodded again. Her name was Lily Bennett. Saying her name out loud after all this time hurt more than I expected. She vanished when I was 21. Police never found anything. Victor and Adrian exchanged a quick look that made ice crawl slowly down my spine. What? I asked immediately. Neither answered fast enough. What? Adrian finally stepped closer. Claire, what did your sister do for work? She worked at hotels sometimes. Event planning mostly. My heartbeat quickened suddenly. Why are you asking me that? Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Because Lily Bennett's name appeared in one of my internal investigations 4 years ago. The teacup nearly slipped from my hands. What investigation? Adrian's eyes held mine steadily now. Cold silver softened slightly by something almost human underneath. Regret maybe. A woman matching your sister's description infiltrated one of my properties using false credentials. My breathing stopped completely. No, Claire. No. I repeated louder this time. Lily was not a criminal. Adrian's expression never changed. I did not say she was. Then why was she in your investigation? Thunder cracked outside hard enough to shake the glass again. Adrian looked at me for one long, unbearable second before answering quietly. Because 3 weeks after that investigation began, your sister disappeared too. Grief changes shape over time. At first it is sharp enough to cut you open every morning. Then one day it becomes quiet. Heavy. Familiar. Like carrying a stone in your chest, so long you almost forget it is there until someone says the name you spent years trying not to hear out loud. Lily. The sound of it inside Adrian Wolf's penthouse cracked something open inside me that I had spent 3 years forcing shut. You are wrong, I whispered. Adrian did not move. Claire. You are wrong. I repeated louder, standing so quickly the tea spilled across my shaking hands. I barely felt the heat. My sister was not involved with criminals. She planned weddings, corporate events. She volunteered at animal shelters on weekends. My throat tightened painfully. She cried during dog commercials. Victor quietly took the teacup from my hands before I dropped it. I barely noticed. Adrian watched me with the same controlled stillness he always carried, but something in his eyes had changed. Not suspicion anymore. Something closer to understanding. Somehow that only made me angrier. You think because she disappeared she must have done something terrible? My voice cracked hard enough to embarrass me. Do you know how many nights I sat by my phone waiting for her to call me? Do you know what it feels like when police stop returning your messages because they assume the missing girl probably just ran away? Silence. Heavy and respectful. Adrian finally spoke quietly. I do not think your sister was terrible. Then why was she in your investigation? Adrian exhaled slowly before answering. Because someone inside one of my hotels was leaking information. My stomach tightened immediately. And you thought it was Lily? No. His answer came too fast to be fake. I thought she witnessed something. The room went still. What? Adrian stepped closer slowly. 3 years ago, a private event was held inside one of my properties in Chicago. Someone attending that event disappeared afterward. Ice crawled slowly through my veins. Disappeared how? Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Nobody could find them. My pulse pounded louder. And Lily was there? Yes. I stared at him, breathing harder now. Did you question her? Adrian held my gaze. I tried. What does that mean? His eyes darkened slightly with something I could not read. It means she vanished before I could reach her. Thunder rolled outside again, softer this time. Further away. The storm was moving east across the city while mine somehow kept getting worse. I wrapped Adrian's oversized coat tighter around myself, even though the penthouse remained warm. I spent 3 years believing she abandoned me. My voice came out small now. Tired. She left our apartment one morning and never came home. No note. No call. Nothing. Adrian said nothing, which somehow hurt less than empty sympathy would have. I looked toward the windows to avoid his eyes. After 6 months, everyone stopped saying her name around me. My laugh sounded hollow. Apparently, missing women become uncomfortable eventually. Adrian moved quietly beside me near the glass overlooking Manhattan. Claire. I hated how gentle my name sounded in his voice suddenly. Do not, I whispered. Do not look at me like that. Like what? I swallowed hard. Like you feel sorry for me. Adrian studied me silently before answering. I do not pity you. Then what? Another long pause. I think somebody used your sister the same way they are trying to use you now. My breath caught instantly. No, Claire. No, panic crawled up my spine again. You said yourself people around you disappear. Adrian's expression sharpened immediately. Not people under my protection. The words landed harder than they should have. Protection. Dangerous word. Dangerous promise. I turned toward him fully. Why do you care what happens to me? Adrian looked genuinely surprised by the question. Because somebody targeted you. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting tonight. Frustration flared hot. Beneath my fear. You do not get to pull me into this and then decide what I am allowed to know. Adrian stepped closer again. Close enough now that I could see faint exhaustion beneath his eyes for the first time all night. Claire, he said quietly. The less you know, the safer you are. I almost laughed at that. Safe. I gestured around the penthouse sharply. I have been followed for days by strangers wearing my face while your security team hunts fake hotel employees through Manhattan. Does this honestly look safe to you? Adrian's jaw tightened. Before he could answer, every light in the penthouse suddenly flickered once. Then again, Victor looked up immediately. Sir. The room shifted instantly. Security personnel moved toward hidden earpieces. Elena froze near the hallway entrance. Adrian's entire posture changed beside me. Calm disappearing beneath something razor-sharp. What happened? Victor pulled out his phone quickly, checking the screen. His face went pale. The security system just went offline. Silence crashed through the penthouse. Then every window facing Manhattan went black at exactly the same time. Darkness has weight. I never knew that until 50 stories of glass turned black around me, and Manhattan vanished like someone had erased the city with one hand. For half a second, nobody moved. The only sound was rain beating against the windows and my own breathing coming too fast, too loud, too close to breaking. Then Adrian's hand closed around my wrist. Not hard, not possessive, anchoring. Stay with me, he said. Emergency lights flickered on overhead, painting the penthouse in thin red shadows. The luxury disappeared instantly. The marble floors, the art, the champagne-colored walls. In that light, everything looked like a warning. Victor was already moving. Backup power is delayed. Adrian's voice sharpened. How delayed? Unknown. A security guard near the elevator pressed 2 fingers to his earpiece. His face tightened. Sir, internal communications are jammed. My mouth went dry. They are here. I did not mean to say it out loud, but everyone heard me. Adrian turned slightly, placing himself between me and the elevator without. Thinking. That tiny movement made my chest ache in a way I did not understand. He had done it so many times tonight, shielding me with his body, with his coat, with his name, and I still did not know whether to trust him. A soft chime sounded from the private elevator. Every person in the room went still. Adrian lifted one hand. No one spoke. No one panicked. The elevator doors slid open slowly to reveal nothing inside. Empty. Polished steel. Red emergency light reflecting like blood-colored glass. Then something slid across the floor from inside the elevator and stopped near Adrian's shoe. A small white envelope. My name was written across the front in black ink. Claire Bennett. My knees weakened instantly. Adrian looked at the envelope, then at me. Do not touch it. It has my name on it. That does not make it yours. He picked it up with a folded handkerchief from his pocket and passed it to Victor. Victor opened it carefully, pulled out a single photograph, and froze. Adrian took it from him. The moment his eyes landed on the image, something changed in his face. Something so human it scared me more than his control ever had. What is it? I whispered. He did not answer. So I stepped closer and looked. The photograph showed my sister Lily. Older than the last time I had seen her. Thinner. Tired. But alive. Standing beside a window somewhere I did not recognize. Holding up today's newspaper from New York. My hand flew to my mouth. The room tilted. No, I breathed. No, that is not real. Adrian grabbed my elbow gently before I could stumble. Claire. Tears blurred the photograph until Lily became nothing but pale skin, blonde hair, and impossible hope. She is alive. My voice broke on the last word. She is alive. Victor unfolded the paper beneath the photo. There is a message. Adrian read it silently first. His jaw tightened with every word. I looked at him through tears. Read it. He hesitated. Read it. Adrian's eyes met mine, and for once, he did not try to soften the truth. It says, Bring Claire to the old terminal by sunrise, or Lily disappears again. The penthouse went silent except for the storm. I stared at him, waiting for him to say it. Was impossible, that he would not let me go, that he had a safer plan. Instead, Adrian looked toward the black windows where Manhattan should have been and spoke in a voice so cold it barely sounded human. They do not want you, Claire. My heart slammed once. Then what do they want? He turned back to me slowly. They want to see what I will sacrifice to keep you breathing. Hope is dangerous when you have been grieving for too long. The moment I saw Lily's face in that photograph, something inside me came back to life, so suddenly it hurt. My sister was alive. Somewhere out there beneath the same storm swallowing Manhattan, Lily Bennett was breathing while I stood inside Adrian Wolf's darkened penthouse, trying not to fall apart. I have to go, I whispered immediately. Adrian's answer came just as fast. No, I turned toward him sharply. They have my sister. They want you emotional, he said calmly. That message was designed to make you stop thinking clearly. You do not understand. My voice cracked hard enough to echo through the silent room. She is all I have left. Adrian's expression shifted slightly at that. Tiny. Human. Then it disappeared behind control again. Claire, listen to me carefully. He stepped closer until the emergency lights caught silver in his eyes. If they wanted your sister dead, you would not have received a photograph proving she is alive. I hated that he sounded logical while my entire world collapsed around me. Then why send it? Adrian's jaw tightened. Because whoever is behind this needs leverage. Victor crossed the room slowly, studying the photograph again beneath the red emergency lights. The newspaper in Lily's hand was printed this morning, he said quietly. The image is current. My knees nearly gave out again. Current. Alive. Real. Can you track where the picture was taken? I asked desperately. Victor shook his head once. Not quickly enough. I wrapped Adrian's coat tighter around myself, suddenly freezing despite the warm penthouse air. Sunrise is in 4 hours. Adrian's eyes never left mine. You are not going to that terminal. Anger flared instantly through my fear. You do not get to decide that. Actually, Claire, I do. His voice stayed calm, which somehow only made me more furious. Why? I demanded. Why do you care so much what happens to me? Silence stretched between us. Victor quietly motioned for the others to leave the room. One by one, security disappeared into the hallways until only Adrian and I remained near the dark windows overlooking the storm. Adrian waited until the elevator doors closed completely before speaking again. 3 years ago, he said quietly, your sister tried to warn someone inside my organization that there was a traitor. My pulse stopped cold. What? Adrian looked toward the rain-covered glass instead of at me. She overheard something she was never supposed to hear. The similarity hit me instantly. Like me. Adrian nodded once. Like you. My throat tightened painfully. What happened to her? I do not know. For the first time since meeting him, Adrian Wolf sounded tired. Not physically. Something deeper than that. By the time I realized she was trying to help, she had already disappeared. I stared at him, searching for lies. All I found was regret. Quiet. Controlled. Real regret. You looked for her? Adrian finally met my eyes again. For 3 years. The room seemed to tilt slightly beneath me. Why? He stepped closer slowly. Because someone used my world to destroy hers. The honesty in his voice hit harder than shouting ever could have. I swallowed carefully. And now they are using me. Yes. Because I look like Lily. Adrian's gaze softened almost invisibly. No, I frowned. Then why? Another long silence. Then Adrian lifted one hand carefully and brushed a strand of damp blonde hair away from my face with impossible gentleness. Because you matter to me already, he said quietly. My breath caught completely. The confession settled between us heavier than the storm outside. Dangerous. Impossible. Real. Before I could answer, Victor rushed back into the penthouse holding a phone tightly in his hand. His expression alone made my stomach drop. Sir. Adrian turned immediately. What happened? Victor hesitated briefly before speaking. The old terminal just sent another message. Adrian took the phone. His entire body went still reading whatever appeared on the screen. What? I whispered. Adrian looked up slowly. Every trace of warmth vanished from his face instantly. They know Claire is with me. Fear crawled cold through my spine. How? Victor answered quietly before Adrian could. Because they just sent us a live security image from outside the penthouse. My blood turned to ice. Outside, Adrian turned